Good morning. Welcome to the premises of Promo-LEX mission. Today we will present the following report, the third one of this campaign. And in this report we present the main issues regarding the conduct of the election campaign for the presidential elections planned for 1st of November 2020. Several general issues. First, related to the period of monitoring and the events that are covered in this report. The report contains informations and findings of the observers collected during the period between 16th and 25th of September 2020. And in terms of funding, the signature collection campaigns for the period 2 to 25 September 2020. Hence, our findings are reported for these two periods of time. We reiterate our gratitude and we would like to underline one more time the support provided by the donors who are supporting Promo-LEX mission for election monitoring. It is the USAID, Soros Moldova Foundation, which supports the mission via two projects. One project related to monitoring hate speech and incitement to discrimination, and the second project on provision of the necessary equipment to Promo-LEX observers amidst the pandemic, and partially regarding the number of observers to monitor the electoral process in the transnistrian region and in diaspora. And last but not least, they also focus on monitoring of elections in the polling stations that will be established abroad. We have the support of the Council of Europe for that. And we would like to express our gratitude to our colleagues from the EPDE, European Platform for Democratic Elections, that are supporting us with simultaneous translation into English and Russian, and also translation into sign language. So our press conferences will become more accessible, practical to all stakeholders who are interested in the electoral process in the Republic of Moldova. In addition to that, I would like to underline one more time what is the purpose of this report, what is the purpose of all Promo-LEX reports, especially the intermediary ones. So the first one is to prevent possible violations of the law, of the electoral law, to inform the audience, the broad audience, and last but not least, to notify the relevant players, especially the electoral bodies, about certain drawbacks that we have identified and that we believe or that we regard as flaws. And I repeat, we are not prosecutors, we are only observers. We express our opinion, which belongs to us, and does not reflect at all the position of our partners that are supporting us financially. And now I will present our findings. First, traditionally, I will start by presenting the provisions of the legal framework that we believe that are somehow problematic. First, the legal framework on the establishment of polling stations for voters of the Republic of Moldova who are living in the Transnistrian region. Recently, several contradictory messages appeared in the public space, and we would like to make some important clarifications in this regard. These polling stations are established on the basis of a decision taken by the Central Electoral Commission. It is the public authority that decides on the establishment of these polling stations. But the establishment itself is done by the Electoral Constituency Commission on the basis of a decision taken by the Central Electoral Commission. The Central Electoral Commission, in order to organize these polling stations, has initiated public consultations with various relevant stakeholders, especially the Reintegration Bureau, local public authorities, both level 1 and level 2, located in the vicinity of the demarcation line. So as regards the role of the local public authorities in the process of establishing polling stations abroad, they are two. First, the obligation, and I would like to underline this word, obligation of local public authorities to ensure and to cooperate with the Central Public Authority, in particular the Central Electoral Commission, to allocate resources, premises, or a venue where these polling stations will be established. And number two, the right, and again I underline this word, the right of local public authorities to appoint electoral officials in the electoral bodies that will serve these polling stations, or the offices of the polling stations. Promo-LEX observers have reported at least 3 cases where the local public authorities passed decisions by which they refused to comply with the decisions or the recommendations made by the Central Electoral Commission. This is Hagi Mustraskates and Gura Băcălui communities. Criticism, according to the observers, were made by the local public authorities from Varnița and Ciobârciu, but according to the observers, they were not documented in any decisions of the electoral bodies. So as a result, we believe that both the Central Electoral Authority, the Central Public Authority at the central level, the local public authorities at the local level should discuss, they should solve these conflicts that are based on certain elements that have triggered these conflicts, and the public understands them. So first, I'm speaking about the fact that the local public authorities have not budgeted funds to organize or to establish these polling stations. Number two, local public authorities, well, there are some cases when they do not have public premises, they do not have any venues that they could provide for these polling stations. And obviously, there are some moral issues related to these communities being blocked out, related to the intimidations that the inhabitants of these communities are subjected to by the breakaway administration and their representatives. As a result, we recommend one more time both to the central public authorities and local public authorities to communicate, to enhance their communication, not only to inform each other, but truly communicate. And last but not least, to find solution, including reach a compromise or look for alternative solutions that would allow a correct and free election for voters from the Transnistrian region, which, according to the Constitution, according to the Electoral Code, have the right to vote. So I was speaking about alternative solutions, so I believe we still have enough time the authorities still have enough time to analyze alternative solutions, to learn from the experience of other countries as well. When in crisis situations, in emergency situations, the polling stations were opened, for example, in big tents, with a good ventilation, with heating. For sure, authorities, both the Ministry of Defense and the civil protection units from the Ministry of Defense do have such tents. The second issue related to the legal framework is about the uncertainties. So it is not yet clear how the electoral campaign will be organized for the electoral contenders that will start tomorrow, 2nd of October 2020. Given that the emergency, the public health emergency situation was not extended, was not prolonged for the whole country, but there are some communities where the public health emergency state was established. So as a consequence, the local commissions, local public health commissions, should pass decisions that might limit certain rights. I would like to mention that the so-called red code in public health is established in about 68% of administrative territorial units, and only one settlement has a yellow code, and the others are in orange. As a result, the electoral contenders will have to check for each local public authorities of level 2 what are the limitations. That the limitations might differ from one level 2 administrative territorial unit to another. So in such a way, our recommendation is for the decisions of the territorial electoral for the territorial commissions to be published immediately. I believe it would be good for the Central Electoral Commission to publish this decision in a centralized way on the website of the Central Electoral Commission in order to facilitate access to this information for electoral contenders, so that they could find all the information on one single website, and for them not to have to look through dozens of web pages to find this information. Last but not least, I believe the Central Electoral Commission might issue certain recommendations or instructions for electoral contenders with regards to how to organize the main types of electoral activities, such as door-to-door discussions, meetings with voters, and so on. Other issues of the legal framework are the following. So we reiterate, because we've mentioned, we've referred to these issues and flaws both during the general local elections and at the 2019 elections, when the mixed voting system was used with regards to collecting signatures, and uncertainties with regards to invalidation of certain types of signatures. Here, I would like to underline that the Electoral Code stipulates clearly in Articles 48, Paragraph 4, and in Article 47 of the Electoral Code, so they list the cases when the signatures can be declared as null or invalidated. Unfortunately, the regulation of the Central Electoral Commission exceeds the provisions or those lists of cases that might result in invalid signatures. And here I would like to offer you some examples. According to the Electoral Code, the Electoral Code does not stipulate such cases when the signatures can be invalidated on the following reasons: contain inaccurate data, false signatures, because there is no way and capacity at the level of Central Electoral Commission to prove that a certain signature is false, inaccurate data or modified data, another ID card than the requested one, partial data. It means information on the basis of which a number of signatures were declared as non-valid in case of most of potential electoral candidates. Moreover, in our opinion, the rule in Article 47, Paragraph 3 of Electoral Code is excessive with regards to collecting lists per locality. We reiterate that this is an inheritance from the situations when the electoral lists were supposed to be authenticated by the mayors of that specific locality. So as a consequence, our recommendation is for this provision to be amended. Moreover, we believe that when we have an electronic system to check the voters' lists at the level of Central Electoral Commission, which, by the way, is not regulated expressly in a regulation, but nevertheless there is a possibility in case of some errors, for example, when a certain person is included in a list of a certain community, but he or she changed the domicile, so for that person to be automatically assigned to that locality where he or she lives. So in such a way, the will and the opinion of the voter to be respected and not to discard this will of a citizen. Regarding the circular letter and the position of the Central Electoral Commission with regards to funding of parties or initiative groups and electoral contenders by political parties that established them. Here I would like to list several aspects that were presented at the previous press conference as well. First, on the 12th of September, the financial reports of two initiative groups were submitted, supporting Mr. Nastasi and Mr. Usatay, where the Central Electoral Commission has stated that they received financial support by the political parties above the ceiling of 12 average salaries per economy. Nevertheless, the Central Electoral Commission did not apply any sanction. They only stated this fact. Afterwards, on the 15th of September, the Central Electoral Commission issued its circular letter by which the Commission stated that the political parties may fund initiative groups and electoral contenders only within the limits of, or only up to the ceiling of 12 average salaries per economy, because they are not electoral contenders according to Article 1 of the Electoral Code. On 28th of September, the financial statement of the initiative group supporting Maya Sandu was submitted. The Central Electoral Commission used the same approach as in the case of Nastasi and Usatay, meaning that they stated that the ceiling was exceeded without applying any sanctions. So, for us, it's not clear why Electoral Commission, the Central Electoral Commission, approved that circular letter, which it violates itself. And the second question, why in this situation the Central Electoral Commission does not use this right to annul this circular letter in order to bring more clarity to all electoral stakeholders for the campaign that is expected to start on October the 2nd. Regarding the decisions and the activity of electoral bodies, I would like to underline some technical issues, but important things. First, the Central Electoral Commission during these 2 weeks passed 34 decisions regarding the organization of the presidential elections, Many of them targeted the change of the membership of electoral constituency commissions, but I would like to underline one decision that amends the regulation on the accreditation of observers and their work, the Central Electoral Commission. And here I would like to thank all members of the Central Electoral Commission that supported this amendment related to the permission for the observers who will monitor the electoral process abroad to be accredited, including on the basis of the ID card, not only on the basis of the passport, as it used to be stated in the old version of the regulation. So, speaking about accreditation of observers, we can see that the interest of to observe the presidential election is increasing. In the past 2 weeks, 468 national observers and 47 international observers were accredited. So, on the date of 29th, we had 537 national observers and 76 international observers accredited. Regarding the activity of constituency electoral commissions, first we have to underline that according to observers, generally in 90% of cases, the working program of these commissions is complied with, and only in 10% they do not comply with their working program. There is a high number of changes in the membership of constituency electoral councils. 9 cases were registered already. Also, the observers have found improved access of premises where the constituency electoral councils are located. So, according to our observers, 61% of premises of constituency electoral councils are either fully accessible or partially accessible for the elderly or for persons with disabilities, compared with the 2019 elections, when this percentage, according to Promo-LEX observers, was about 47%. So we do have an increase in this regard. Regarding the establishment of polling stations for these elections, a number of or better said, a decision was taken to open 2,143 polling stations, of which 1,962 polling stations will be in the country, compared to 1,981 in 2016. In addition to that, 42 polling stations were decided to be open for voters from the Transnistrian region, and 139 polling stations for voters who are abroad. So, as a whole, 2,143 polling stations should be opened for the presidential elections. Regarding the establishment of the 139 polling stations abroad, we have to clarify the following issues, which in our opinion are very important. First, we reiterate the fact that the organization and establishment of these polling stations by the Central Electoral Commission took place without any public consultations with the main stakeholders of the whole electoral process, which are potential electoral candidates, political parties. Nevertheless, we have to underline that the setting up of polling stations and the decision on how polling stations should be set up is the most clear decision in the whole history of elections in Moldova, starting with the situation when the polling stations were established outside the premises of diplomatic missions. So the Central Electoral Commission finally accepted the recommendations of the civil society with regards to the use of a clear formula, mathematical formula, a non-political one based exclusively on the criteria stated by the law, and on the basis of this formula they made their final recommendation of September 21st, 2020, which actually is closest in terms of geographical location, so closest to the recommendation formulated by Promo-LEX in the summer of 2019, when we recommended to the Central Electoral Commission to adopt an accurate regulation on the mechanism regarding the opening of polling stations abroad. So, as I've said, this decision is clear. It is based on a mathematical formula. In the Promo-LEX report, you will find a comparative analysis regarding how this formula was applied, but nevertheless, certain relevant issues such as information provided by the host country or certain limitations or interdictions imposed by the host country have impacted somehow the decision regarding the opening of polling stations in those countries. So, on the basis of the comparative analysis made by Promo-LEX and on the basis of the decision of Central Electoral Commission, we will see certain small differences, but in some cases the differences could be quite big in terms of polling stations opened abroad. So according to our estimations and comparative analysis, more polling stations should have been opened in the Russian Federation and in Germany, and fewer polling stations in the USA. These are the biggest gaps, from 4 to 5, 6 polling stations. The other differences are not significant. It's 1 or 2 polling stations. Last but not least, if we're speaking about polling stations abroad, our recommendation for the Central Electoral Commission, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Integration is to make clear clarifications from the very beginning that so clarifications about the steps to be taken in a hypothetical situation when it will not be possible to open 139 polling stations because we have the decision of the Central Electoral Commission, which is a manifestation of their will, but we are perfectly aware that the host countries might impose certain limitations or interdictions due to various reasons, but the biggest reason is the pandemic. So, for example, if a certain country, so, for example, we have to open, say, 5 polling stations in a certain country, and for round 1, because of the pandemic, this country does not allow us to open those 5 polling stations on its territory, in those 5 venues that we've selected, but in 2 weeks, the pandemic situation might improve, and the host country could allow us opening this polling station. Will this be taken into account, or will this be regarded as changing the rules of the game during the game? So as long as we have this decision to open 139 polling stations and we do not exceed this number, so the Central Electoral Commission should analyze the situation and should publicly express its opinion so that we have no surprises in the future. Regarding the establishment of polling stations for voters from the transnistrian regions, first, we have to mention that compared to the polling stations abroad, here we do not have a clear mechanism why 42 polling stations were decided to be open. Our finding is that this number is by 12 polling stations lower compared to the 2016 elections. My apologies, bigger, by 12 polling stations bigger compared to the 2016 polling stations, and by 6 polling stations lower compared to the 2019 elections, parliamentary elections. Also, we have found that if in the 2019 elections only 34% of the polling stations were established and were established in the close vicinity of the demarcation lines, which separates the controlled territory from the non-controlled ones. For these elections, most of them, with several exceptions, several polling stations in Chisinau and Belt, if I'm not mistaken, so most of them are established in the close vicinity of the demarcation line. We reiterate these problematic aspects that are still in place and for sure will be in place on the elections day, which is lack of venues to open polling stations, lack of resources for local public authorities to comply with the obligations stated expressly by the law. And last but not least, we have to draw the attention to the mechanism of free movement for voters, citizens of the Republic of Moldova living in the territory controlled by the breakaway regime. Even if there are certain limitations, in inverted commas, on the basis of certain laws and decisions issued by the breakaway administration, we have found, our observers have found, that these limitations are not absolute in nature. Our citizens who live in the Transnistrian region for a short period of time, 12 hours at most, can leave this territory and return back without being subjected to certain limitations or restrictions such as self-isolation and so on, in justified cases and with preliminary or with prior information of representatives of the separatist administration, in particular the local militia. So in theory, our citizens will have the possibility to leave the territory of Transnistria in order to exercise their right to vote if the breakaway administration does not impose any artificial barriers, meaning if the local militia does not prohibit them from leaving this territory. But as of now, they do have this possibility. Regarding the registration of electoral contenders, I would like to give you some technical data. Now, we are in a situation when 13 initiative groups have been registered. Of them, as of 29th of September, so I reiterate this, 9 initiative groups managed to collect the needed number of signatures and submitted the file to the Central Electoral Commission. 6 files of 9 were already reviewed as of 29th of September. Of them, 5 candidates were registered and 1 file was rejected. Of the 9 entities, or initiative groups that submitted the files to the Central Electoral Commission, those that managed to collect signatures. 8 are political parties or electoral bloc, and only 1 initiative group is supporting an independent candidate. As of 29th of September, in the initiative groups were Mr. Kostas and Kalinin announced publicly that they would not submit files to the Central Electoral Commission, and they give up on participating in the electoral run. But no official decision was yet taken by the Central Electoral Commission regarding these 2 cases. As for the settlement of electoral litigations, we have at least 4 cases, different cases registered with the Central Electoral Commission. 2 of them, the complaints or the notifications were registered by the Central Electoral Commission and were reviewed as complaints, meaning according to the procedure. And we have 2 cases when the Central Electoral Commission avoided to register them as complaints, and it's not clear how they were or they will be settled. Also, the courts, Chisinau Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court of Justice, reviewed 6 complaints, and most of them were rejected without being reviewed on the merit, so they were declared as non-admissible. In this context, we would like to reiterate the legal obligation of the Central Electoral Commission on the basis of Article 22, Paragraph 1, letter Q of the Electoral Code, by which they are obliged to review promptly any situation that might be regarded as electoral fraud, for example. And they should not postpone the review of these cases after the electoral process is closed. And last but not least, we would like to draw the attention of all stakeholders, both the electoral bodies, Central Electoral Commission and courts, about the right to effective remedy. By the way, this right is stated in the decision of the Constitutional Court of 2016, when the Constitutional Court stated clearly and indicated clearly on the violation of this right as part of the review of the electoral complaints. So the court stated that the procedures were not clear and they had to be reviewed. Regarding the work of the public authorities, especially the local public authorities, in the context of preparatory works for the elections, we have checked several important issues. First, we've checked their knowledge of the provisions of the electoral law in terms of declaring the place of stay. And I would like to underline that this procedure can be used by these citizens who are temporarily living. For example, they are renting an apartment in a different community without formally changing their domicile or residence. This category covers the immigrant workers, those who immigrate domestically. For example, they have their residence in villages and come to work in Chisinau. Also, this group includes the students who live in students' shelters, for example, or dormitories, or the groups of people. We've checked at least 59 local public authorities to see whether they know this procedure of how to register the place of stay, and we've seen that only in 4 situations representatives of local public authorities did not know this mechanism. And we've checked this and Chisinau municipality, Belts municipality, and inhabitants of the suburbs of these 2 municipalities. According to the interviews conducted by Promo-LEX observers, only 484 citizens used this procedure of declaring their place of stay, and as a result they were automatically included in the main voters list. 454 I think are from Chisinau. They have declared their place of stay in Chisinau. And I would like to underline one more time that today is the last day when this procedure can be used. So starting with tomorrow, the main voters list will be prepared and people will be able to vote on the basis of the general rules set by the Electoral Code, meaning at the place of residence or at the place of their domicile. Regarding the activity of potential electoral contenders, we've noticed a decrease in the number of activities related to signature collection in the signature sheets. So observers have reported only 130 such activities. Also, our observers have found at least 26 cases of political activities that can be regarded as electoral advertising. 24 of them are targeting initiative groups, supporters of Mr. Nastasi, and 2 cases regarding Mr. Usatый. This was done after they were registered as electoral contenders. I want to underline that electioneering can be done only beginning with October the 2nd. Also, during the signature collection period, we've noticed that 25% of activities of signature collection in support of independent candidate Igor Dodon were conducted by members and supporters of the Party of Socialists. Actually, President Dodon, in at least 2 situations, public interviews, he admitted that he was supported by the Party of Socialists during this campaign. Promo-LEX observers reported at least 23 situations that can be regarded as use of administrative resources. Of them, 15 cases target Mr. Dodon, 7 cases Violeta Ivanov, and 1 case is about Maya Sandu. We can offer the following examples when it's impossible to differentiate between job-related tasks and campaign-related and political promotion activities. In the case of Mr. Dodon, there are at least 12 such situations. 2 of them refer to meetings and discussions with heads of states, with Mr. Putin and Turkish President Mr. Erdogan. And for the audience, it's very difficult to understand whether this is an ordinary job-related task or that's for political promotion purposes. 10 cases refer to awardings or to giving state awards by the country's president. And here I believe we have to underline several important things. In 2020, according to the analysis made by Promo-LEX observers, the president of the country, Mr. Dodon, issued a decrease to give 43% of all awards that were given over the past 4 years. during his whole mandate period. So 43% of all awards were given in the last year of activity in 2020. In addition to that, we've noticed that many awards were offered, or decrease on giving awards were passed in the summer and spring of 2020. But the the formal event of giving out the awards was organized very close to the electoral period, which is somehow against the ordinary practice when on the formal giving out of state awards was given on the occasion of some national holidays or some professional holidays. Regarding the use of administrative resources, we have found a case when the public website of the presidential house was used to promote the image of Mr. Dodon. One case when the public authorities of Volunteer Village participated in spreading informational booklets about the potential candidate Maya Sandu, and 9 cases of taking credit for things done with public money. So the resources for certain infrastructure works, for example, were allocated by public authorities, but the merits or the credit was taken by stakeholders that did not participate directly in those projects. In 2 cases, it is about Mr. Dodon, and in 7 cases, it is about Violeta Ivanov. 3 cases of using the image of foreign officials by potential electoral candidates. 2 cases, it's about Mr. Dodon, and 1 case about Maya Sandu. And I would like to underline one more time here, because Promo-LEX mission has reiterated every time that, in our opinion, this prohibition is exaggerated and most probably should be reviewed, because it limits the freedom of expression of electoral contenders. So I've said that 130 cases of campaign-related activities. So we can see more activities of advertising. Our observers have reported at least 207 cases of street or online advertising. Beneficiaries of this advertising in about 33% is Mrs. Maya Sandu, 27% Mr. Dodon, and about 22% Mrs. Violeta Ivanov. The funding of signature collection campaigns, certain important things about it. Now we are in a situation when we found, for the period between September the 2nd to September 25th, that the potential electoral contenders have collected revenue in the limit of 1 million and a bit more than 800,000 lei. Most of the money was collected for Violeta Ivanov initiative group, for Maya Sandu more than 400,000, and the initiative group supporting Mr. Dodon more than 350,000 lei. Also, we have found that most of the funding sources are donations in goods and services. About 61% of all resources are donations in goods and services. 28% of revenue are donations by individuals, and 11% are donations by political parties. Regarding expenses, the most important thing that we would like to underline is about the reporting by all potential electoral contenders of 0 lei spent for signature collection. So those persons that were officially registered as collectors of signatures were not remunerated, and they are not registered as volunteers either. So we can see that they are collecting signatures, but we do not see this reflected anyway in the financial reports. We believe it's about 100,000 lei not reported. Unreported spending, according to our estimation, for all categories: advertising, transport, collectors of signatures, the total estimated amount by Promo-LEX for the past 2 weeks to 25th September 2020 would be more than 748,000 lei. To break this down by initiative groups that managed to submit their reports or statements, so our estimates are the following. Initiative group supporting Mrs. Ivanov, more than 269,000, and Anastasia 172,000 not reported, Renato Usate more than 172,000 non-reported, Mr. Dodon more than 83,000 non-reported, Octavian Tsiku more than 57,000 non-reported, Adrian Kandu more than 15,000 lei non-reported, Maya Sandu more than 14,000 lei non-reported, Deliu more than 9,000 non-reported, and Mr. Kirtaka more than 5,000 lei non-reported, according to our estimates. The last two things refer to the use of hate speech and civic education during the election campaigns. If we are to speak about hate speech, we have found during this period of time at least 5 cases where potential electoral contenders, or actually already registered candidates, generated certain public messages that can be regarded as hate speech and incitement to discrimination. All 5 cases is about Mr. Renato Usate, registered candidates. In 19 cases, our observers have found that either registered candidates or potential candidates or their supporters are victims of hate speech and incitement to discrimination. Of them, 14 cases are about hate speech and incitement to discrimination against candidates or potential candidates, and 5 cases their supporters are targeted. The main criteria underlying hate speech and incitement to discrimination, unfortunately, are political affiliation, health condition, certain disabilities, professional work, gender, and last but not least, religious beliefs and opinions about religion. And the last section in our report focuses on civic and electoral education. Here we would like to underline that there is more activity organized by the Central Electoral Commission and Center for Ongoing Training in Electoral Matters. So trainings have been conducted both online and face-to-face. And also I would like to draw your attention to the fact that Promo-LEX mission on 28th of September organized a meeting, an informal meeting, and invited all initiative groups, all 13 of them that were registered. During this informal meeting, we reiterated and we presented one more time the methodological issues on the basis of which we observe the electoral process, we explained how we estimate the spending that was not reported by electoral contenders. And last but not least, we presented 2 web platforms that are managed by Promo-LEX Association. One of them is used to report incidents or election-like events that take place in Moldova. And for that, I repeat one more time, we manage electoral.monitor.md platform. So any individual, any stakeholder, representative of electoral contenders, obviously, can access this platform and place information about the events that they have witnessed and which, in their opinion, are of electoral nature. And of course, they can post their information about some electoral incidents that, in their opinion, might affect the quality of the electoral process. We have also presented the instruire.monitor.md platform. This platform can be already accessed there. You can find training for short-term observers who would like to get involved in the monitoring of the electoral process for the elections of November the 1st, 2020. This workshop does not contain all of the data that observers, Promo-LEX observers, have access to, but it is based on the guidelines and on the instructions that are given to Promo-LEX observers. The only exception in this regard is that we have not uploaded on the platform the forms that observers are used to report. As for the explanations of the electoral procedures, they are described in details in that training. So any stakeholder, including electoral contenders, can use this public platform in order to train their observers. If they do not have the possibility to organize their own training, or if they do not have any training due to various reasons, and they cannot attend the trainings provided by the electoral bodies. So these are the main findings in our 3rd report. I hope that we will see each other at the next press conference that will be organized in 2 weeks on a Tuesday. It will start again at 10:30. And it will be in the same room as we are now. If you have any questions about the presentation of the report, I'm open to answer them. My apologies. I would like to underline one more time that the report that was not yet proofread, but it was submitted for information purposes to members of the Central Electoral Commission. It was submitted to the journalists that attended this press conference, and as I've mentioned already, on September the 28th, during the information session for the initiative groups and the candidates that have been already registered, this report can be submitted only upon request to the electoral contenders or to candidates or to initiative groups. And it will be published in 72 hours at most. Once it is proofread, it will be published on the website of Promo-LEX Association. So, if you have any questions, I'm open to answer them. If you don't have any questions, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I invite you to the next press conference in 2 weeks on a Thursday. All the best to you, good luck, and hopefully we'll see each other in 2 weeks.